I didn't cheat on her. That's the sentence I repeat when people ask what happened between us. And it's true in the simplest way. There was no other woman. No secret messages. No hotel rooms or lies about where I'd been. But the night she packed her things, she looked at me like I had been unfaithful for a long time. It started with a voicemail. I found it 3 weeks after she sent it, buried under missed calls and work notifications. Her voice was calm, which somehow made it worse. I need to talk to you. Not later. Not when you finish something. I mean really talk. If we don't, I don't think we're going to survive this. I listened to it standing in the kitchen, holding my phone like it was evidence of a crime I didn't remember committing. I told myself I would call her back after the meeting I was late for. Then after the next one. Then after dinner, which I ate alone because she had already gone to bed. By the time I finally remembered, she had stopped asking. We had been together for 4 years. Long enough that people assumed we were permanent. Long enough that routines replaced surprises and schedules replaced conversations. We didn't fight much. That was what I was proud of. I thought peace meant health. Looking back, peace was just silence with better lighting. When we met, she was the loud one. Emotionally, socially, spiritually loud. She wanted to travel. She wanted to learn new things. She wanted to talk about everything she felt the moment she felt it. I admired that about her. I also slowly learned how to live around it instead of inside it. My job grew. Responsibilities multiplied. I became someone who always had a reason to be tired. I brought stress home and left connection at the office. She tried to meet me halfway at first. She cooked. She waited. She adjusted her plans to my schedule. She asked small questions that were actually large ones. Are you still happy? Do you notice when I'm not? Do you know what day it is? I answered all of them with facts. We had an apartment. We had stability. We had plans. I never answered them with presents. The first time she cried because of me, I didn't realize it was about me. She said she felt alone. I said she wasn't. She said she felt invisible. I said she was being dramatic. I thought reassurance was the same as listening. I was wrong. The night everything finally broke, I was sitting on the couch with my laptop open, working on something I don't even remember now. She stood in the doorway of the living room for a long time before speaking. Do you know when the last time you looked at me was? She asked. I shrugged. I see you every day. That's not what I asked. I told her I was tired. That we could talk tomorrow. That this wasn't the right moment. She nodded slowly, like she was writing something down in her head. Tomorrow has been killing us for a year, she said. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care. Because I didn't know how to argue with something that felt true. She didn't leave that night. She went to bed. I stayed on the couch. We slept in the same apartment and in different lives. Over the next weeks, she changed in ways I noticed but didn't question. She stopped asking where I was. Stopped waiting up. Stopped trying to schedule things for us. I told myself it meant she was giving me space. What it really meant was she had stopped trying to reach me. The day she left, there was no shouting. No accusations. She folded her clothes with care. She lined her shoes by the door like she didn't want to upset the floor. When I came home, she was sitting at the table with her bag beside her. I didn't cheat on you, she said, before I could speak. I know, I answered. She looked at me then, really looked at me, like she was searching for someone who used to live behind my face. That's what makes this worse, she said. I asked her what she meant. You gave everything important to everything else, she said. And you kept giving me what was left. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. That I loved her. That I worked for us. That none of it was intentional. But none of that sounded like an apology. It sounded like a defense. So I asked the only honest question I had left. When did you decide to leave? She didn't answer right away. When I realized I could disappear and you wouldn't notice until I was already gone. I didn't follow her when she walked out. Not because I didn't want to. Because I didn't know what I would say if I did. The door closed softly behind her, and for a moment I waited for something dramatic to happen. A slam. A cry. A sound that meant this was real. Instead, there was only the refrigerator humming and the ticking clock on the wall. I sat down at the table she had just left and stared at the empty chair across from me. It looked like it had been waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. That night, I replayed every conversation we'd had in the last year. Or what passed for conversations. Short exchanges. Logistics. Questions about groceries and bills and schedules. I couldn't remember the last time I had asked her how she actually felt and stayed long enough to hear the answer. I told myself she would cool down. That she just needed space. That couples survived worse things than emotional distance. But something about her last sentence wouldn't leave me alone. When I realized I could disappear and you wouldn't notice until I was already gone. I noticed everything after she left. Her mug still on the counter. Her jacket still in the closet. Her shampoo still in the shower. All the proof that she had existed in my life became loud at the same time. I went to work the next morning like nothing had happened. I answered emails. I sat in meetings. I made decisions that affected people I barely knew. No one there could tell that my relationship had ended 12 hours earlier. That scared me. At lunch, I almost texted her. I typed out 3 different messages and deleted all of them. Where are you? Are you okay? Can we talk? All of them felt too late. 2 days passed. Then 3. On the 4th day, I found the voicemail again. The one I hadn't answered. I need to talk to you. Not later. Not when you finish something. I mean really talk. If we don't, I don't think we're going to survive this. I listened to it over and over until the words stopped sounding like a warning and started sounding like a farewell. I finally went to her sister's place. I knew that's where she would go first. When she opened the door and saw me, her expression didn't change. Not angry. Not surprised. Just tired. She's not here, she said. I just want to talk to her. She talked for years, her sister replied. You just weren't there. That sentence hit harder than anything my girlfriend had said. I walked back to my car feeling like I had lost something without ever officially being told it was gone. The worst part wasn't missing her. It was realizing how much of our relationship had existed only because she carried it. She planned things. She initiated conversations. She created moments. I showed up to them like they were appointments. Weeks passed. Friends tried to comfort me. At least she didn't cheat. At least it ended clean. At least you can focus on work now. None of that felt like comfort. I started staying later at the office again. Not because I was busy, because it was easier to be useful than to be present with my own thoughts. One night, as I was packing up, I saw a couple in the lobby arguing quietly. Not screaming, just standing close, trying not to lose each other. For some reason, I couldn't look away. I thought about how many times she had tried to argue with me like that. Calm, direct, honest. And how many times I had avoided it by saying, not now. I went home and sat on the edge of the bed, holding her pillow. It still smelled like her detergent. I pressed my face into it and felt something crack that I had kept rigid for a long time. I didn't cry for the relationship. I cried for the man who thought love could wait. The next morning, I did something I had never done before. I took a day off. No meetings. No emails. No pretending. I walked through the city without headphones. I sat in a cafe without my laptop. I watched people talk to each other and realized how rare it had been for me to really talk to anyone at all. For the first time, I asked myself a question that had nothing to do with work or survival. If I didn't cheat, if I didn't lie, if I didn't betray her with another person, then what did I actually do? And why did it feel worse than cheating would have? The answer didn't come all at once. It came in small humiliations. I started noticing how many of my memories with her involved something else in the foreground. My phone, my laptop, a deadline, a future excuse. I remembered a weekend we had planned to take a short trip. Nothing fancy, just 2 days by the water. The night before we were supposed to leave, my boss called about an urgent issue. I canceled the trip without even looking at her. You didn't even ask if I was okay with it, she said. I have to do this, I replied. It's important. So am I, she said quietly. I had treated that sentence like a challenge instead of a truth. Another memory came back from her birthday. She had invited a few close friends over. She cooked all afternoon. I arrived late, stayed near the kitchen counter, and spent half the night answering messages. She didn't make a scene. She just stopped smiling. At the time, I thought she was being moody. Now I saw it for what it was, grief in advance. I went through old photos on my phone. In most of them, she was looking at me. In most of them, I wasn't looking at her. I realized then that I hadn't cheated with another woman. I had cheated with distraction, with ambition, with urgency, with the idea that love was something stable enough to ignore. Once that thought formed, it wouldn't leave me alone. I tried to reach her again, not with excuses, not with promises, just with honesty. I understand what I did now, I wrote. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I see it. She didn't reply. Days passed, then a week. I imagined her reading the message and shaking her head, or not reading it at all. One evening, her sister called me. She's not angry, she said. She's just done being the only one in the room. I thanked her and hung up. There was nothing to argue with in that. I had always believed betrayal required intent. a decision, a conscious act. But I had betrayed her with indifference, with absence, with the slow erosion of showing up. And it felt worse because I couldn't point to a single moment and say, that's where I broke us. I broke us by being unavailable in 1,000 ordinary ways. I started therapy after that, not because I was trying to win her back, because I didn't want to repeat the pattern with someone else. The therapist asked me what love meant to me. I said stability, loyalty, providing. She asked, and presence. I didn't have an answer. We talked about avoidance, about how I used productivity to escape vulnerability, about how being needed at work felt safer than being needed by a person. At least at work, if I failed, I could fix it. With her, I had been afraid of not knowing how. I began practicing small things, turning my phone face down when someone spoke, finishing conversations instead of postponing them, saying how I felt before it became silence. They felt awkward, unnatural, like using muscles I had never trained. One afternoon, I saw her in the distance outside the bookstore where we first met. She was with someone else, not holding hands, just walking beside him, talking. My chest tightened. I didn't go over. I didn't interrupt. I watched her disappear into the crowd and understood that seeing her happy didn't hurt because I wanted her back. It hurt because I knew exactly what I had failed to be. That night, I wrote in a notebook for the first time in years. I didn't cheat on her. I just never chose her when it mattered. Writing that sentence didn't make me feel better. It made me feel accurate. I started paying attention to how often I avoided discomfort. Every time someone asked how I was doing, I gave the efficient answer. Busy, fine, tired. Words that closed doors instead of opening them. At work, people praised me for being reliable. I stayed late. I solved problems. I didn't complain. I realized that reliability had become my entire personality. It was the safest way to be admired without being known. Therapy made that impossible to ignore. One session, my therapist asked, "When was the last time you let someone be disappointed in you?" I didn't understand the question at first. She explained, "You avoid conflict by avoiding choice. You give people time, money, and solutions, but you don't give them yourself." That sentence followed me home. I thought about the night she stood in the doorway and asked when the last time I had really looked at her was. I had treated her question like an inconvenience, like something I could postpone until I had more energy. But energy doesn't arrive by waiting. It arrives by deciding. I started forcing myself into moments I used to escape. When my mother called, I didn't rush her. When a friend complained, I didn't fix it. I listened. When silence appeared, I didn't fill it with a screen. It felt inefficient, which meant it was probably honest. One evening, a coworker invited me out for a drink. I almost said no out of habit. Then I went. We talked about things that weren't work. His divorce, my breakup, the strange fear of going home to an apartment that no longer argued with you. I thought not cheating made me a good guy, I said. He laughed without humor. I thought paying the bills did. We sat there longer than planned. I didn't become a different person overnight. I still missed her, especially in small ways. When I saw something she would have liked. When I heard a song she used to sing badly on purpose. One weekend, I found a box in the closet with her handwriting on it. Things she hadn't taken when she left. A scarf. A book with folded pages. A postcard from a trip we never took. I sat on the floor and held the scarf to my face. It still smelled faintly like her detergent. I imagined her folding it carefully, not wanting to make a mess of her leaving. For the first time, I let myself be angry. Not at her. At me. I had treated love like a background application. Something that could run quietly while I focused on what felt urgent. Now the quiet was all I had. I didn't reach out again. Not because I didn't want to. Because I finally understood that apologies are not supposed to reopen doors. They are supposed to close the right ones. So I wrote her a letter I never sent. I know I didn't betray you with another person. I betrayed you with everything else. I made you compete with a life that never included you properly. You deserved someone who noticed when you were disappearing. I didn't. I'm trying to become the kind of man who would. I folded it and put it back in the box. Weeks passed. My life didn't improve in visible ways. No promotions. No dramatic changes. Just fewer excuses. More pauses. Longer conversations. Then something unexpected happened. One morning, I woke up and didn't feel the need to check my phone right away. The apartment was quiet. Sunlight touched the wall where her photo used to hang. I made coffee and stood there holding the cup, not rushing anywhere. For the first time since she left, I didn't feel like I was being punished. I felt like I was being taught. Being taught is uncomfortable when you don't know the lesson yet. Life kept offering me small tests. Not dramatic ones, quiet ones. Moments where I could either disappear into habit or stay present and risk feeling something. I met someone new around that time. Not through an app. Through a friend's birthday dinner I almost skipped. Her name was Claire. She laughed easily and asked questions that weren't polite but sincere. "What do you actually care about?" she asked me over dessert. I almost said my job. The old answer. The safe one. Instead, I said, "I'm still figuring that out." She didn't treat that like a weakness. She treated it like a place you could stand. We went for coffee a few days later. Then a walk. Then dinner that lasted too long because neither of us rushed it. I noticed how often I wanted to impress her and how often I stopped myself. I told her about my last relationship in simple terms. Not the story where I was misunderstood. The one where I had been absent. I didn't cheat, I said. But I didn't show up either. She looked at me carefully. Those can feel like the same thing to the person waiting. I nodded. That's what I learned too late. Dating her felt different from before. Not lighter. More deliberate. I paid attention to how often I checked my phone when she spoke. How often I tried to multitask a moment that deserved to be single-tasked. Once, in the middle of dinner, my boss texted about something that could wait. I felt the old reflex in my body. The urge to stand up. To excuse myself. To choose usefulness over connection. Instead, I turned the phone face down. Claire noticed. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just choosing something else right now." That sentence scared me more than declining a meeting ever had. I didn't tell her I loved her. I didn't promise anything permanent. I just kept choosing to be there. On purpose. Over and over. Still, my past didn't stay quiet. One afternoon, her sister messaged me. "She's engaged," she wrote. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Not because I wanted to stop it. Because part of me still believed I had unfinished business with the idea of us. I walked for hours that day. Let the news move through me instead of around me. I realized I wasn't jealous of the man she chose. I was jealous of the man she would never have to beg for attention. That night, I sat with the box again. The scarf. The letter I never sent. The photo of us in the old apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes and future plans. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel desperate. I felt accountable. She didn't leave because she stopped loving me. She left because loving me required disappearing. And I had finally learned what that cost. Claire came over later that evening. We cooked together and burned the sauce and laughed about it. She leaned against the counter and told me about something that had hurt her years ago, and I didn't fix it. I stayed with it. When she left, I didn't feel saved. I felt capable. Capability felt different from confidence. Confidence had always been loud in me. It announced itself through plans and promises and long hours. Capability was quieter. It showed up in moments where no one applauded. Claire and I kept seeing each other, but I didn't rush to define it. I watched myself closely. Every time I felt the urge to escape into work, I asked what I was actually avoiding. Sometimes it was a difficult conversation. Sometimes it was nothing more than being seen. One night, she asked me why I never seemed distracted when we were together. I thought about it for a moment. "Because I know what distraction costs," I said. She didn't ask for details. She didn't need them. At work, I stopped volunteering for every emergency. I did my job well, but I didn't let it become the place where I hid. When problems came up, I solved them during work hours instead of turning them into proof of importance. People noticed. "You've changed," my boss said one afternoon. "You used to live here." "I used to be afraid to go home," I answered, and surprised both of us. I didn't hear from my ex again. No messages. No accidental meetings. Just the knowledge that she had moved into a future that didn't include me. That knowledge stopped hurting the way it had. It became something steadier. One evening, Claire asked me if I believed people could change. "I think they can," I said, "but only after something breaks." She studied me. "What broke you?" I told her the truth. I didn't lose her because she stopped loving me. I lost her because I never made room for her to exist. She didn't react dramatically. She just nodded, like I had finally spoken in a language she trusted. Later that night, after she fell asleep on my couch, I sat in the dark and thought about the voicemail again. "I need to talk to you." "Not later. Not when you finish something. I mean really talk." I finally understood that she hadn't been asking for time. She had been asking for priority. And I had answered with postponement. That was the betrayal. Not another body. Another focus. I took the box out of the closet one last time. The scarf, the photo, the letter I never sent. I didn't reread the letter. I knew it by heart. I tore it in half and then into smaller pieces. Not in anger, in completion. I folded the scarf and put it in a bag for donation. I kept the photo for a moment longer, then slid it back into the box and closed the lid. Some lessons are meant to stay with you. Some reminders are meant to leave. Claire woke up and found me in the kitchen, holding a mug of coffee and staring at nothing. "You okay?" she asked. "I think I finally am," I said. She came over and leaned into me. I didn't stiffen. I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't think about what this meant for the future. I stayed in the moment like it was the only place worth being. For the first time, I wasn't trying to prove I was faithful. I was practicing being present. I used to believe loyalty was about not crossing certain lines. Don't kiss someone else. Don't sleep with someone else. Don't lie about where you've been. I followed all of those rules, and I still lost the woman I loved. Claire and I didn't become a story overnight. There was no dramatic confession, no moment where everything suddenly felt safe. What we built was slower than that, quieter, based on repetition instead of promises. I showed up when I said I would. I listened when she spoke. I didn't multitask her emotions. It sounds small. It felt enormous. One evening, she asked me, "Do you ever miss her?" I didn't pretend I didn't understand who she meant. "Yes," I said, "but not the relationship. I missed the person I could have been with her." She took that in without fear. "And who are you now?" I thought about it. "I'm someone who knows that love isn't proven by restraint. It's proven by attention." She smiled softly. "That's the right answer." Months later, I ran into my ex by chance in a bookstore, the same one where we had first met. She was standing in the aisle with travel guides in her hands. We recognized each other at the same time. She looked happy, not in a performative way, in a settled one. We talked for a few minutes. About ordinary things. Work. Life. Whether pretending to be spring. There was no tension in it. No unfinished sentence waiting to be spoken. Before she left, she said, "You look different." "I am," I answered. "Did you finally learn how to listen?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Too late for us. But not too late for me." She nodded. That's all I ever wanted. We hugged. Not the kind of hug that tries to fix something. The kind that releases it. Walking home, I thought about how close I had come to believing my only failure was timing. But timing hadn't ruined us. Absence had. I didn't cheat on her with another woman. I cheated on her with everything that told me I could wait. Work. Stress. Tomorrow. Now, when Claire talks, I don't plan my response. When silence appears, I don't escape it. When love asks for time, I don't negotiate. I give it. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. You can be faithful in every technical way and still be unfaithful where it matters most. I didn't destroy my relationship with betrayal. I destroyed it with postponement. And losing her taught me something I wish I had known earlier. Love doesn't leave when you make mistakes. It leaves when you make it wait too long.